Hate, it has caused a lot of problems in this world, but it has not solved one yet. Maya Angelou, American author, poet, actress, singer, dancer, and civil rights activist. All right, good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. Tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right, folks, this morning we're going to be talking about bigotry because, it's a topic that seems to always pop up every now and then for one reason or another. And specifically, what we want to get to today is all right, how do we address it? So let me kind of lay this out. Number one, today there's going to be some unsavory language. I try to keep this show family friendly, but some of the clips that I got, I be like, I'm not going to spend my time going through and beeping everything. And, at the end of the day, this is like if your 6-year-old is listening, like that's cool and all. And I try to keep it friendly so that you can listen while your 6-year-old is in the car or wherever, but sometimes they're just going to come across things that you don't want them to come across and you'll have to deal with that. So today is one of those days. I'm giving you fair warning. Uh, Number two, this is a topic that it has to be discussed ad nauseum because people don't get it. And you might say, well, yeah, you're right. Those racists, they don't get it. No, actually, I mean you, not you, every one of you. But if you're the kind of person that's busy pointing the finger at the racist, there's a good chance you don't get it either. And you're like, wait a minute, what? Me? I'm not the bigot. No, but in many cases, you have a lot of power in how things play out. So let me tell you something kind of a story that's kind of tangentially related. So I've mentored on and off over the years, and one of the common the mentoring that I've done has been with teenagers, mostly those who are at risk. And so one of the common elements that I've found is that there's a lot of pointing that's not my fault. This isn't my fault. And it's like, okay, maybe, and truthfully, a lot of times when I talk to these kids and they're like, "Well, this isn't my fault. It's not my fault I got in trouble at school." Right? It's kind of like the dude that says, "I was just at the bar minding my own business." That joke where it's like every bar fight starts with somebody who's just minding his own business, right? Like everybody's like, "It's not my fault." Like, but I've talked to kids and they're like, "Well, this isn't my fault. I got in trouble." And it's like, okay, many cases actually is your fault, but in some cases, perhaps it's not. But you're the one that has to deal with it. So best find a good way to deal with it that's constructive and a value add, right? Like that's just the reality. So let me read from this article. We're going to talk about this incident that happened at a barstool bar, and let me see, where do we go here? There it is. Oh, that got tiny. How did that happen? Oh, I think I know it. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. I was looking at my screen. I was like, man, that's not supposed to look like that. Okay, so let's go here. Let me pull it up on the screen. We'll just kind of skim on over. All right. So maybe I'm a little too big. Let's see here. There we go. Shrink me down. There we go. All right. So now you can see the. If you're watching, if you're listening, you probably are like, "What is he yapping about?" I was just adjusting some things on the screen. So, all right. So it says this is from the American Jewish Committee. This is an article about the incident at Dave Portnoy's Barstool Sports Philly bar. All right. So what happened? I'm reading it. An anti Semitic incident occurred at a Barstool Sports owned bar in Philadelphia on May 3rd, where patrons displayed a sign reading F the Jews while ordering bottle service. Video footage showed the group laughing, dancing, and singing along to music, quickly going viral on social media. The incident sparked widespread outrage and led to a strong response from Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy the following day on May 4th. Portnoy's reaction to the anti Semitic incident at his bar. Portnoy, who is Jewish, responded publicly with a fiery condemnation of the incident, expressing his anger and frustration. Quote, "These are young effing morons who did this. They're drunk," he said, adding that he had faced more anti Semitism in the past year than ever before during his 20 years with Barstool Sports. Rather than immediately pursue harsh punishment, Portnoy emphasized using the situation as a quote teaching moment and said that the offenders would visit Auschwitz to understand the gravity of their actions. He also fired the two waitresses involved. Now, now, can I can I just point out something? If you're on the job and somebody is doing something that's unambiguously offensive, it is a very bad idea for you to partake and go in go in with them, right? Like get in on the act. That's a very poor choice. It's like you can make some arguments and say like, okay, and we'll talk about this. You can say, all right, well, they're patrons and they're just being stupid. Like Dave said, they were drunk, acting like fools. Uh, but if you're working, there's not a lot of excuse for you. When I say not a lot, I mean like none. So, so like, I'm sorry that you got fired, but like, really, at your job, and you couldn't act any better. Anyway, I'm reading along. However, in a turn of events on May 5th, Portnoy said he revoked an tongue tied, an offer to send one of the men involved in the anti-Semitic incident to Auschwitz for education after the man, Mo Khan, a student at Temple University, denied involvement despite posting the video. Portnoy expressed frustration, saying he had tried to create a teachable moment, but Khan backtracked and claimed he was merely a, quote, citizen journalist documenting the event. Whatever ramifications comes his way, he 100% earned and deserved, Portnoy wrote on Instagram. Okay, so let me just point this out because this is an area of frustration that I have. There are people who will call themselves citizen journalists and then they try to hide behind that whenever they make a mistake or do something wrong, don't get the story right, whatever. That's no excuse. Look, I have a podcast. I'm over 500 episodes. I work my butt off to make sure that if I tell you something, at least the facts of the matter are correct. Now, my interpretation of the facts, what that means, how, maybe we should respond, those sorts of things are up for debate. But I want to make sure that I get the facts correct. And I'm not considering myself a journalist. I don't go digging for a story. I just research a topic, something maybe in the news or some sort of topic, and then I give you my opinion on it, right? I'm not pretending in any way to be a journalist, and I can do this. So I would expect that anybody that claims that they're a citizen journalist to basically bring themselves up to the standard or what is expected to be the standard for journalism. And the way I look at it, I didn't go digging. Like I could have spent a lot of time looking into Mo Khan's, social media accounts and all the things that he said, but there's a lot of video out there. And I didn't really care to dive in and sort out, you know, is Portnoy correct? Is Khan correct? Right. Like who's the person that's in the right? I didn't spend time on all that because I want to talk about the broader topic of bigotry here. But right now, I just want to kind of take a sidestep for a moment and say, like, if you call yourself a citizen journalist, you should be held up to the expectation of journalistic standards. And if you're not willing to do that, then perhaps don't call yourself a citizen journalist. And so my initial thought is if you have to come out and tell everybody, whoa, 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 I was just a citizen journalist. Well, are you? like your followers should be able to say, no, this is what he does. He's not part of it. He documents this stuff, kind of stuff all the time. He lets people know what's going on, right? Like people should be able to back. Like if I come out and my podcast and I say something and somebody clips it, and then later I don't have to tell you, well, I'm a podcast bro. This is what I do. I give you my opinion. Anybody that's listened to me for more than 5 minutes will tell you, like, yeah, DL is an opinionated podcast bro, right? Like, I don't like my reputation at this point should kind of precede me. So I just wanted to make that point. And maybe he is a citizen journalist. I don't know. But my initial reaction, my gut reaction is when you have to come out and because my understanding of the story is that Dave called him up, said, I'm going to send you to Auschwitz. He agreed. And then later changed his mind because, and we'll see the video of Portnoy talking about this, but he had a bunch of videos. And so like his first video came out and he was just fighting mad, just cussing and carrying on, just very angry. I'm going to bury these guys. Like, I want to know who did it, yada, yada. Like he was pissed. And then the second video, the one that I saw, this is the first that I had seen and heard about the incident. He came out and he's like, look, I think there's a better way to approach this. These are young people. We don't need to destroy their lives. We can use this as a teaching moment. And we'll watch that video in just a second here. And then he came out with another video and he's like, all right, that's it. These guys, they've done a 180 now. Now, they agreed to do this. Now they don't want to do this. Now they're blaming me, blah, blah, blah. F 'em. That was kind of his attitude. So Portnoy is, he's been going around in a bunch of different directions. Like first he was angry, then he was, like, all right, let's calmly walk through this. Then he's angry again. And honestly, I can't blame him. Like you come to my establishment, like if I have a restaurant and you come there and you start holding bigoted signs up, I'm gonna be upset too. And I'm gonna want to find out everybody that was involved and punish every one of them. Right. Like whatever I can do to make the point that what you did is unacceptable in my establishment. Right. I would be angry too. Would I use it as a teaching moment? Hopefully, but I can't guarantee. So let's hear what Dave Portnoy had to say. Let's see here. There we go. Maybe.
All right, real quick update.
And again, I want to just forewarn you if you have your children present. He uses profanity, and so from here on out, just expect it at some point.
On the "Fuck the Jews" sign that was at my bar in Philadelphia yesterday. 2 hours ago, he literally could have cooked an egg on my head. Yep. That's how much steam and heat I had come out of my ears. And the more I thought about it, it's like these are young fucking morons who did this. They're drunk. It's like, do you really want to ruin somebody's life? And let me be honest. I don't know what's going on in the world. I do, the Middle East, obviously, but I've been doing Barstool for 20 years. I've had more hate, more anti-Semitism in the last year and a half than I've ever had doing it. And whether people, it's like Kanye, the UFC guy, it's like mainstream lunatics. And I'm not talking about politics or what's going on in the Middle East, just hating groups of people. You hate my parents, you hate my grandparents, shit like that. It's crazy.
Okay, I want to pause here, and I just want to, from what I recall, I'm not so confident that anti-Semitism or any kind of bigotry is on any significant upward trend. I do think that now that you have access to the internet and it's a place where people say all kind of stuff. I mean, you name a group and I'm going to tell you there is some vile stuff. I follow some people, some women who are just kind of keep up with the mom circles, and they can be downright vicious. They will, like, if you feed your baby formula, there are women out there that will basically say you're a bad mother and you shouldn't have a child. Like, and they might say it in really, unsavory terms. And so, like, but I don't remember ever hearing any of that growing up. Like, that was never I don't, you know what I'm saying? So I don't think, I don't, and I'm not trying to say like, oh, because there's crazy moms out there that want to talk about feeding your child formula, then that means that anti-Semitism is no big deal. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's no big deal. What we're talking about is there any significant increase? I don't know, but for sure, we would have to like really do some serious documentation to really determine. And I'm not even sure that we could do it because we would have to document, okay, like what was it in say 2000? What was it in 2005, 2010, 2020, right? We would have to have some way to measure it and then be able to compare and say, okay, well, yes, it is. No, it isn't. Right. But I think if we used what we see on the internet as a gauge, we end up being in what I would call the libs of TikTok effect. And what that is, when libs of TikTok first came out, it was kind of interesting because you were like, oh man, look at all these videos. And you just like scroll and scroll and scroll. Well, after a while, you start thinking that every kindergarten teacher out there wants to trans your kid. When in reality, what's really happening is all these crazies are being compiled into one small area for everybody to see. And so now that I can see 14 videos, well, it seems like a lot, but the truth is that's 14 videos um, out of how many potential videos? How many of those, like, okay, maybe there are 14 different women who are acting crazy, but how many actual school teachers are there in America? And then how many who are not crazy, right? And how many have been crazy? We just didn't get to see them because we didn't have ease of access to all this video, right? That's the point that I'm making is like we have to be very careful about what we see. Now, maybe in his establishment, he has observed it over the years and he's like, yeah, I've had reports more in the last year from my bars, and that's never been a thing. Okay, well, then that's not a poor gauge from the internet. So I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I do want to kind of buffer this and be like, I think we have to be very careful. But again, that's not to say it's not a problem, right? What do we mean when we say problem, right? Well, yes, it happens. Is it something that the government needs to address? I don't think so. Is it something that um, is exist and we need to be mindful of? Yes. Yes, it is. Right. There's bigotry of all kinds. And I think now the internet has just kind of made it easier to see what was really out there. Also, I think it creates a platform for people to act foolish. It's very easy to get on there and just be like, you know what, if you Jew, and then not think about it, because the internet kind of breeds this attitude of, you know, getting under each other's skin. So anyway, I just wanted to make that comment. Let's continue listening.
So yeah, my initial reaction was like, I'm gonna fucking burn these people to the ground, their families, everything. And it's like, you know what? Maybe that's not the best course of action. Maybe I can use this as a teaching moment. And like before people just are like, fuck the Jews or any group and the hate, let's try to like turn a hideous incident into maybe a learning experience, as cliche and very unlike me. But I talked to both the culprits who I know are super involved in it, talked to the families. I'm sending these kids to Auschwitz. They've agreed to go. That's, of course, the Holocaust concentration camps. Been in touch with the Crafts, who run the anti-hate group. We're going to send these kids to Auschwitz, and they're going to do a tour of the concentration camps in Germany and hopefully learn something. And maybe like their lives aren't ruined and they think twice. And more importantly, other people like, see, it's not just like words you're throwing around. So to me, that's a fair outcome of this event. The two waitresses who worked at our place fired. One of them so dumb, Kelly, just the dumbest human I've ever talked to. And I don't know if she thought she was making a political statement, but it was basically her alone, didn't go to a manager, kind of forced another girl to do it. She should have said no, but the other girl put up a fight. Those two girls are fired, but more importantly, the people who ordered these signs, they have agreed. I'm going to pay for it. We're going to send them to Germany, to Auschwitz, and learn a little bit about history and hopefully, get educated and use this as a teaching moment, not just for them, but maybe for everybody. So that's where we're at. So for everyone like who wants these kids' lives to be ruined, I think you can lay off, and I think this is a fair fucking trade.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. That was the absolute best way that it could be handled. Now, let's talk about this from a libertarian perspective really quickly. Um, Free speech. I told you guys the other day I was pretty much an absolutist, and I am. Okay. Um, should you be able to hold up a sign that says F the Jews? You absolutely should. Yes, you should. Legally, you should be able to. Okay. In other words, the government can't come after you and say, hey, we're going to punish you. We're going to throw you in jail. We're going to fine you money, right? For holding this sign. However, here's the catch. If you go to somebody's property and you do something distasteful, whether it's a minor thing or a significant thing, right? Doesn't matter. It's their property. They have the right to kick you off. They have the right to set the rules under how you will behave on their property. If you come to my house and then you start insulting my wife, you're going to be excused, perhaps physically, right? Because it's my property and that's not tolerable. If I had a restaurant or a bar or any other establishment, I would ask you to leave as well if you came and you were insulting groups of people, you're saying distasteful things. Now, if you're just drunk and being a little bit loud over to the side, perhaps we let it go. It depends, we're gonna gauge it based on the situation, right? Case by case basis. Perhaps you're just being a little obnoxious over here. Cool, we'll let you go. No big deal. But if it becomes a problem, right? However that's defined, yeah, you're gonna be asked to leave. If I owned the bar, I would be angry too, right? Because it's like that's not what I want in my bar. I'm not Dave, and I don't know Dave, but I'm going to make an assumption that I think is a really good assumption. He has the Barstool brand so that people can go and have a good time, drink and eat, watch some sports. That's the purpose of it. Is the purpose and yeah, sometimes people are gonna say unsavory things to each other, right? Like, they may be talking about, maybe there's 2 people are arguing about their sports teams and, the argument, uh, dr drifts into, language that's not polite. Like, fine, right? Like, I'm sure he gets that. But he's like, I assume that he wants to have a place where people can just come and have a good time, period. Right? That's my assumption. I think it's a really good assumption. That's what it would be if I owned Barstool. But again, you don't own the bar, so you don't get to make the rules. Now, one thing that really drives me crazy is people go, "Well, freedom of speech, but not freedom of from consequences." And I feel like that's frequently used as an excuse for any response to poor behavior. So we talked about this the other day with the whole Shiloh Hendricks. That's the woman in Minnesota who called the little kid or however old they are, the N word repeatedly. And then she got caught on film saying the N word to some guy who happened to be present and then started videotaping her. Right. And so I said, like, look, it's one thing to kind of make her a pariah and be like, you're that kind of person. I don't want to be around you. It's another thing, quite another thing to publish her information, call up her place of employment, maybe threaten her, leave her nasty voicemails. Like that's an entirely different. That is in itself its own very poor response. And some people will go, yeah, well, you don't have freedom from consequences. Like, no, not those consequences. There is a point where the consequences have gone too far. Okay. But there is truth to this. Like, the 2 waitresses got fired, rightfully so. Like, if you're foolish enough to engage in that kind of behavior at your place of employment, and honestly, I would say whether you're on the job or not, but at your place of employment, then yeah, don't be surprised if you get fired. That there's no freedom from the consequences. Now, we can argue what the consequences should be, and that's fine. But I just wanted to kind of make this point. Like, I'm a free speech absolutist, but I'm also a private property absolutist. And so what that means is if you're on my property, well, then I get to, if I say, please come onto my property, please come to my bar. and you say, okay, there's going to be maybe not a written contractual agreement, but there is some level of agreement on how you will behave in my bar. And it's pretty well understood. Now, what does this have to do with libertarians and free speech? Well, libertarians, it's not that we don't want legal it's that we want, I'm sorry, it's that we want no legal punishment initiating from the government over speech. So if I come into your establishment and I say F the Jews and I have a big old sign and I'm being an idiot, the government shouldn't be able to on its own come and say, hey, you know what? You can't do that. That's against the law. You're going to jail for holding up that sign. No, they shouldn't be able. But the owner of the establishment might be able to say, hey, I kick you off. I'll kick you out of the bar at a minimum. There may be a situation where they could sue me and say, "Hey, you've caused actual damages that I can prove, and you owe me compensation for those damages." Right? That could potentially be a thing, right? Um, but the real big catch here that I think people don't understand: the fewer places that are considered public also mean the fewer places that bigotry would be permitted. So, don't you think about that? Because I just like if it's a like if it's a sidewalk in front of a store and I want to hold up a sign that says Jews get out of America, legally I should be able to do that. And because it's public property, that means the government can't stop me. I could hold up a sign on one side of the street, and on the other side of the street, somebody could hold up a sign and say, the guy across the street's a moron. Okay, freedom of speech. Government can't do anything about it, right? As long as we're not, you know, obstructing traffic or, basically uh, impeding somebody else's right. And so, but if we move this public property into private ownership, how many private businesses can you think of right now that would be okay with an F the Jews sign? Name one. I'll wait. You can't. You might be able to speculate and say, well, if it was owned by a neo-Nazi, but you don't know any places, like more than likely, you don't know any places that are literally owned by a neo-Nazi or somebody of some other similar flavor, right? You don't know those. So the answer is we don't know any. I can't think of a single establishment in Jacksonville that if an F the Jews sign was in that same fashion was, it was a lit up sign that said F the Jews. If they had one and it was on video, that they would come out and they would defend it and say, hey, that's cool here. We're okay with it. I can't think of a single one. Not a single one. So I want you to think about that. If we started getting rid of government property, like public property, and narrowed it down to the absolute minimum, maybe a courthouse, stuff like that, streets, they're owned by private. Guess what? Bigots have nowhere to go. They have to be on their own property all of a sudden, because if the more private property there is, the fewer spaces there will be for them to hold up signs. Dave is in his complete right to fire the waitresses and to have those people kicked out of establishment and then even barred from any one of his establishments and say, look, because of your behavior, I don't want you in any of my businesses. And then guess what? Let's say I owned a bar and I'm Dave's competition. Well, as I told you a moment ago, we can't think of any place that wants to have that kind of sign. So what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to go, well, you're not welcome here either. I don't want that trash at my bar. And so now all of a sudden, just through regular, old fashioned, boring freedom of association, which I've talked about, now all of a sudden, these people have been excluded from society. Now, ideally, when they come to their senses, they can be re-included, right? But that's the conversation for a different day. I just want to make this point that I think is often missed by libertarians, in that it's not that we don't want these things to be dealt with. We just don't want the government to be the one to deal with it. Dave Portnoy managed to deal with this whole situation without any government whatsoever, right? Like he was prepared to send them to Auschwitz, and hopefully they would say, okay, perhaps, now seeing this, I can understand why people would be so bothered by F the Jews sign. Now, I've never been to Auschwitz, but I can already tell you why people would be so upset. Presumably, everybody that was involved also can figure it out. They just didn't have their head screwed on straight, probably because they're in their 20s and they're stupid. Right? Let's be honest. When I was in my 20s, I was pretty stupid. Most of us were pretty stupid in our 20s. Was I that stupid, compared to somebody else? No, but then there are other people who weren't that stupid compared to me. So, like, stay humble, folks. All right. So that's the groundwork we've laid. So we know what the story is about. We know what's going on. We know what Dave tried to do. Then and again, I'm not going to try to work out, and reconcile the back and forth. But that Mo Khan, that fellow then came out with his own video, basically pointed the finger at Dave, was like, oh, I'm a citizen journalist, blah, blah, and I think that was a bad move. If you've agreed to do something, then your word should mean something. You should honor your word, right? If Dave gets a hold of you and he says, look, you videotaped this in my bar. I don't, I'm mad at everybody, that didn't stand up and say, knock this crap off, right? Whatever. And I'm willing to do you a solid. I don't want you to have your life ruined. You need to go to Auschwitz and, just kind of walk around so that you can learn a little bit of empathy here. That person should have went, especially if you're a citizen journalist. You should have went and been like, hey, I took this opportunity to really do some serious journalism. I went to Auschwitz. Hell, you could even say, "Hey, Dave, in addition, can I have a private sit down with you afterward? If I go, can I have a private sit down with you? Because I'm a citizen journalist." I think he handled it totally wrong, and that's because in my opinion, I think he's probably just hiding behind it, which is why I made the point earlier that I did. But let's go to some comments here. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about how do we deal with this? Like, let's go further than just what Dave attempted to do. Let's see what we can come up with. So let's take a look here. Let's get our chat music going. All right. Some jam there. All right. Let's see what y'all are saying. Rumble. Clicked on the wrong button there. All right, here we go. Where is it? Rumble hours. Rumble watch hours go burr. Yes, not Joe. Please do watch my shows, like in full. It helps out the channel. It helps me grow. I could potentially get paid, so that would always be nice, right? Oh, my little button doesn't work. Ooh, okay. I guess my noise buttons don't work. Anyway, or maybe the music is just too loud. Maybe that's what it was. Let me see. No, it doesn't work. Okay, whatever. Anyway, always a technical difficulty around here. Let's see here. My VA lady says, make sure and sign up for Rumble Premium so you can join the after party. Yes. After the show, we'll have a little, 15-minute powwow and just talk about whatever. Let's see. What else? Is bigotry irrational and repugnant? Yes, actually it is. It's and it might be weird hearing me say that if you know any history of me, because I helped remove that language from the Libertarian Party platform. And the reason I did it is because people were weaponizing it. And the moment you weaponize something, it's no good. It's kind of like when people say, oh, racist, and they're not talking about a KKK member. They're talking about somebody that like did a microaggression, right? And they're like, well, you microaggressed at this person because you're a racist. And it's like, okay, now you're abusing the language and you're making it of no value. And that's exactly what happened in the party. But it is irrational and repugnant. In fact, I would argue, and I will argue here in a little bit, that a lot of bigotry comes from ignorance. You fear something or somebody that you don't know. Let's see here. Save the language. I will save my language. I can't, unfortunately, save the language from the videos for the after party. So maybe I'll cut loose in the after party. I'm not going to say F the Jews, but maybe I will say a naughty word. We'll see. As needed, I think. So anyway, let's see here. Might be. Yeah, those mom groups are effing nuts. They can be. I see some crazy stuff, and I'm like, y'all care way too much about this idea. Libertarian JRT, keep up the good work, DL. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I will do my best to keep up the good work. All right, let's take intermission here, and then we will be back, and we will talk about how to deal with this.
You Are the Power is a membership-based grassroots nonprofit whose mission is to spread and act upon the principle of human respect.
In 2024, we received over 300 requests for assistance. And with the recent expansion of our volunteer program, You Are the Power stands ready to assist hundreds more in 2025.
Since its inception, You Are the Power has sought to do something radically different in its advocacy, transcend the political divide, and help those who need it most.
We focus our efforts on empowering every one of you by using localized, single-issue activism to free our communities, take power away from the government, and put it back in your hands where it rightfully belongs.
We remind the government that they are beholden to us, not we to them.
With a shared social media reach of over 100 million, You Are the Power's work in 2024 brought about significant and inspiring change nationwide.
Unconstitutional local ordinances were repealed. Families fractured by the poverty of due process within the criminal legal system were reunited. The confirmation bias of law enforcement was exposed, resulting in criminal charges against factually innocent people being dismissed, and the actions of bad actors were uncovered, shining a light on the need for increased governmental transparency.
Harmful government measures stem from the lack of respect for its people, and fostering a culture of human respect is the best way to combat this.
You Are the Power utilizes positive, solution-based messaging to demonstrate how human respect is the viable alternative to mandated government policies.
You Are the Power holds free training sessions for our members, offering classes on public speaking, leading with love, media relations and publicity, event planning and management, legislative outreach and engagement, and understanding your rights while interacting with law enforcement.
We launched an app in 2024 that allows members to connect directly with causes and leadership team members. It enables us to activate our members to organize their community resources around a cause and work toward a solution.
Most importantly, we are thankful to you, our members. Last year was historic. Your generosity and support made it possible because
You are the power.
Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoy the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, so we're back. If you missed it yesterday, you can check out the You Are the Power interview that I did with Catherine Miller and Ryan Ralston. There was a great conversation. Ryan Ralston is they have 4 regions in the U.S. He's one of the region directors, and so he was on. And then Catherine Miller is a newly appointed state organizer for You Are the Power. And so definitely check that out so you can learn more about that organization. All right. So we're talking about bigotry. We're talking about, like, what do we do about bigotry? And you know what? It's actually a very counterintuitive solution. So I've got several video clips here to make my point. But let me just break. I'm gonna give it to you simple. The simple, super 1-sentence answer to bigotry is to befriend people. That's it. That befriend them. You might be like, DL, no, we got it. No. Will it work on everybody? No. Will it work on quite a few people? Would it really make a dent against bigotry? Absolutely. And the evidence is on my side, not only in anecdote, but in data. So let's start with the anecdote. Here's a video, and I played some of these on my show in the past, but it's worth bringing them up again so that we can have this conversation. Because honestly, right now we're in a situation where we have these mobs online, and people seem to only know how to attack. And guess what? Attacking people isn't working. I mean, so either you care about dealing with bigotry or you care about just dunking on somebody. Take your pick. But don't dare claim that you care about bigotry if all you want to do is just ostracize somebody. If that's your goal, if that's what you want, you just want to be bigoted yourself. You just want to be bigoted in an acceptable way. That's what that means. So let's watch this video.
A member of the White Power movement for many years, and previously was a Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan.
Ken Parker, you too. Okay.
I met him when I was filming at Charlottesville, before the rally descended into chaos and violence. Ken is exactly the kind of person I've always been afraid of.
Now, this video comes from it comes from Meeting the Enemy. What is it? Meeting the Enemy, the White Right. I'm drawing a blank on the. Let me look at my notes here. White Right Meeting the Enemy. I had that backwards. Okay, so White Right Meeting the Enemy. Dia Khan, a Muslim filmmaker, went out to Charlottesville, and she's like, "Look, I'm going to meet these people, and I'm going to talk to them. We're going to see what happens." So this is part of her documentary.
But now I'm going to spend time with him at his home in Florida, which he shares with his girlfriend, Crystal. So that's the Klan?
Yeah, this is a Klan tattoo.
I'm not racist. I don't hate anybody. Well, I guess in that sense, like, because I absolutely despise Jews. So, yes, I'm a racist. Jews and homosexuals. I think they should be exterminated, every single one of them.
All right, so we're starting off. This is a bad dude, bad character, right? Unambiguous. Hates Jews, hates gays, he hates Muslims, hates black people. Like, he didn't say all that, but if you watch the full video, he basically hates anybody that isn't white. Like, anybody. That would include me, by the way. I'm not technically white. It would definitely include my wife, my son, right? So, like, bad dude. But there's a twist. In that same video, I want you to watch this next clip. This is a little bit later in the video. And this is, again, Dia Khan decided to meet with him, sit down in his home, interview him. I want you to hear how this conversation played out.
Why are you nice to me?
You've been completely respectful to me. I actually consider you to be a friend. My opinion about Muslims since I've been interacting with you has gone up significantly.
Wait a minute. What? My opinion of Muslims has went up significantly after interacting. How is that possible? He hates Muslims. He says it here in just a moment. Continue listening, because if you think we've really hit the arc of the twist in this story, we have not.
Besides asking me questions that, kind of got under my skin a little bit, don't do the flyers, blah, blah, blah.
So what he's talking about with the flyers, and I cut this part out earlier in the video, she's videotaping him and he's making flyers. He's had a bunch of printouts and he cut them up and was putting them in bags. And then I think he was dumping rice in there so that it would give a little bit of weight so they wouldn't blow away. And then the idea would be these were anti-Jew flyers, and he would go to a Jewish neighborhood and then just drop them off into people's in their yard. Just, basically just throw a little anti-Jew literature in their yard so that they could see it, with the idea being presumably that they would see it and then leave. I guess. I'm not sure exactly what he's attempting to accomplish, but that's what he's talking about.
Throw them out in a Jew neighborhood. Don't use the Jew flyers with the swastika. You're going to hurt people's feelings. It comes down to when my girlfriend was in the hospital for a month, and the only one that called to see how she was doing was a woman from the mosque.
Wait, what? So the white racist, and we're not talking about somebody here who we're claiming is racist. We're talking about somebody who self-identifies, like he just told you, I don't like Jews. He just told you, I hate homosexuals. Elsewhere in the video, he talks foul about other people, other groups of people. He's got a swastika tattooed on his chest like he was out of American History X. Right? This is not one of those cases where we're calling somebody a label and it really doesn't apply because we're overusing it. It very much applies here. And now, before the interview's even over, well, okay, so it sounds like maybe they had more than one interaction because because some lady from the mosque called up to find out, hey, how's your girlfriend doing? A woman from the mosque called up to find out about a white supremacist girlfriend, how she was doing. A white supremacist that says, I hate these people. Yet they reached out and said, hey, how's your girlfriend doing, man? And it was the only one.
I was like, holy shit, I can't believe that. Here these people that I fucking hate are checking up on her.
And what do you think that is going to change in you?
Actually, no, I don't think I'm gonna mess with the mosque anymore. Trust me, I have thought about getting pigs' heads and scattering them around mosques and stuff like that, but I haven't. The worst I've done is bacon. But I'm done messing with those people. You know, if you called me up and say, hey, I need help moving, or hey, I got a flat tire, would you mind helping me out? You know, I would do that. Friendship, it makes people feel good, honestly. I mean, somebody that you can talk to, have discussions with, even if you don't agree with each other. You know, it's nice to have friends.
Wow. Imagine that. So here's the thing, folks. Yeah. Ken Parker he's actually since changed. A local pastor, a black pastor, reached out to him. He ended up starting to attend. He got invited to the barbecue. For real. Like if you go look it up, he got invited to the barbecue. It was a church barbecue, but it's still the barbecue of a church run by a black pastor with a black congregation. They invited him and his girlfriend to the barbecue. They came. They became friends. He renounced his ways. He ended up going to that church. He would even give testimony and be like, look, this group wasn't racist enough for me, so I went to this group because they were ready for my radical racism. This group couldn't even handle it. It was too much for them. Like, and then he's like going to church now and he's renounced his ways. All because did they ostracize him? No, they reached out and they said, let's have a conversation. So I've got plenty more video here. There's actually more video. I encourage you to go watch the Meeting the Enemy, whatever the name. I can't get the name of the title correct. But anyway, I encourage you to watch that. But here's a clip of Dia Khan later talking to Russell Brand about her interaction with Ken Parker. And this is absolutely illuminating. This is what people need to, when I say people don't get it, this is what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. So let's play that clip here and let's see what we learn.
What did you think of him by this stage? Did you like him?
I liked him.
Wait a minute, what?
That sounds really counterintuitive, right?
Yes.
Right, for a person like me to sit there and, you know, somebody who considers me to be a shit skin and a you know, degenerate and all
Did
kinds
he say
of
stuff like that during the conversation?
No, because he wasn't able to. So what I did do is that I told him all those things. I described myself in those terms because that's how I'd been described by people in the past and also in the threats that I'd received. So I kept using these words about myself just to his face. We sat this far apart from each other. And every time I would use a word like that about myself, he would just squirm and be really uncomfortable. And then I just started laughing and going, look, I mean, obviously this isn't the first time that you're hearing words like this. I'm assuming you use words like this. And if you don't, then people around you certainly do. So why are you so uncomfortable? And he just couldn't answer, but he was really uncomfortable. And I said, do you not want me to use language like that? And he's like, no, I don't. And so, so part of that question that I had, is it possible to hate in up close and personal? And face to face, obviously it wasn't possible for him. It is possible for many other people, but it wasn't possible for him.
What does that make you think?
Okay. This is the point that people need to get. Pay very close attention to what she says next. He asked her, he's like, what does this make you think when you think about the fact that some people can hate up close, but other people cannot?
That something else is possible. That also my judgments against people like him, my prejudices, and my kind of very flat caricature that I carry in my mind and my heart about men like that is also incorrect. So it says something about me as well.
Okay. Did you understand that? So I want you to think about this. You have racist. You have a group of racist, bigots, whatever you want to call them. And they don't like Jews. They don't like Muslims. They don't like black people. They don't like all kind of people, right? And so then you become friends with them. And then you find out that some of them actually are willing to move away from that. That all they needed was that interaction. So if you assume that whole crowd is unreachable and the only answer is ostracization. Can I even say that word? If you think that, you have your own prejudice because you're making assumptions about the character and what's possible for every one of them. Now, certainly, like she said, there are some people that you probably will not be able to reach. There might be some people that are simply unreachable. I tend not to believe that, but I leave the door open for that possibility that some people will simply, under no circumstance, will they go to their grave with anything other than hate in their heart. I think there might be some people like that. I would like to believe that everybody is reachable by somebody. Not maybe I can reach somebody you can't. Maybe you can reach somebody that I can't. But again, maybe there's somebody that can't be reached by either one of us. I don't know. But I do know there are plenty of people to be reached. So if we write them off, we're basically engaging in the same exact behaviors. And what did I say earlier? I suggested that bigotry comes from ignorance. If you're bigoted, and you can be, against the white supremacist, if you're bigoted against them, you have a certain level of ignorance about you. And until you clear up that ignorance, you are no better than they are because they have their bigotry based on ignorance. And this is why we have phrases like, he's one of the good ones. You ever heard that? And people are like, we get offended. I think it's a good thing when someone says that. That means they're recognizing that their paradigm of what they believe about a group of people it doesn't work. There's a flaw. There's a problem, right? If I think that every gay person is just, out to get me, I mean, get me, you know what I'm saying? Like if I think that, right? That's a bigoted attitude on my part. And if I don't leave that opportunity open, that maybe some of them actually don't care about me at all, then I'm the bigoted one, right? But also, if I start to realize, hey, this guy, he doesn't make any crazy passes at me, and he's actually kind of funny. And then I go, well, he's one of the good ones. You might at first be like, dude, I can't believe you said that. But you should be glad I said that because that means I realized, like, wait a minute, not all of them. There's at least one. And then what happens after one? Okay, well, this guy, he's also one of the good ones, right? And then one of the good ones starts growing. And eventually, with any luck, that group becomes so big that it's now no longer one of the good ones. Now I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of good gays in the world, and these ones over here are the bad ones. So now I've flipped, and I've went from, identifying the exceptions as the good ones, or the good ones as the exceptions. Now I'm identifying the bad ones as the exceptions. That's how it works. One more clip here real quick, because I do have a hard stop here today. Meetings and whatnot.
Davis thinks that his presence promotes badly needed understanding.
Hate stems, I believe, from fear.
Huh.
From fear of the unknown.
Wow. That's what I said. Ignorance. I mean, effectively. And this is Daryl Davis, by the way. This is, as you can see in the video, it's a very, very old clip. This comes from his TED Talk, by the way, linked in the show notes.
I think this is all across the board, regardless of whether it's a Klansman or anything else.
But he has no illusions about the Klan. If he did, his friend would be quick to disabuse them.
And I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
Okay. They're literally at a Klan rally. You got all these white people, Confederate flags. They got their pointy little hats. They're at a Klan rally. We hate the niggers, all that good stuff. Well, not good stuff, but you get my drift. Like all that stuff, right? That's all there. And you have Daryl Davis standing right in the middle of it. Now that's wild. Now I want you to hear this guy's name, Roger. His name is Roger Kelly. I want you to hear what Roger Kelly has to say about Daryl Davis. Now remember, they're at a Klan rally where the N-word is profuse, more than likely, or at least very, very acceptable. But even if they're not using that particular word, they sure are talking the same way, right? They might say, hey, black people are bad. They're all thieves. They smell, whatever things that they say. I've never been to a Klan rally, so I'm just guessing what they would say. So listen to this.
I will follow right man to hell on back because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me.
Wow. He said, I would follow that man to hell and back. They're at a Klan rally. And a white dude is like, I would follow the black guy to hell and back. Why? He listens to me. That's it. He listens to me. He heard me talk crazy stuff about black people and then just sat there and listened. And if you dig into Daryl enough, you'll find out that, and this is where I've had a lot of arguments with a lot of libertarians because they're like, well, you need to challenge him. No, you don't. You need to befriend people. Hear them. Let them speak their piece. Even if it's not peaceful, let them speak. And then just be friends, because that will go way further than ostracizing people. Oops, I clicked off of it. Let's go back to it. There we go.
A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
They reciprocate. He respects me. He sits down and listens to me. I listen to him. Bam. That's how it started. And if you go and listen, like you should watch if you've never heard the story, you should go and listen to Daryl Davis talk about the first time that he went and met Roger Kelly. It's hysterical. It's a very funny story. And it's very enlightening, I think. So let's listen.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Respect is the key. Sitting down and talking, not necessarily agreeing, but respecting each other to air their points of view. Because of that respect and my willingness to listen and his willingness to listen to me, he ended up leaving the Klan, and there's his robe right there. I am a musician, not a psychologist or sociologist. If I can do that, anybody in here can do that. Take the time to sit down and talk with your adversaries. You will learn something and they will learn something from you. When two enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. It's when the talking ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. So keep the conversation going.
All right. Wise words from him. And I like this. He's like, I'm a jazz musician. His story briefly is just that he was really curious why people hate him when they don't even know him. So he set out to go meet people and say, like, let's just sit down and have a conversation. Tell me why you hate me. Look me eyeball to eyeball, man to man, mano y mano, and tell me why you hate me. And I presume that some of them did. They said, I hate you because whatever, right? And they said whatever thing. Now, here's the real question. Okay, maybe he's a lucky individual. Maybe he just happens to be one of those people that has a certain level of charm, right? That you don't have. Maybe Dia Khan had some charm to her, right? I disagree because neither one of them sought out to, they didn't seek out this opportunity to try to change people. They were literally just like, let me see what's going on. Let me learn. That's what they were doing. They're like, just let me learn. They weren't, there's no hidden agenda. Okay. But you might ask yourself, like, does the data bear this out? And as it turns out, it does. So in 1954, and I meant to grab the book and show it to you, but you can look it up. American psychologist Gordon Allport, he articulated this idea called contact hypothesis. And it was in his 1954 book called The Nature of Prejudice. This theory, it holds that prejudice and conflict within various groups is greatly reduced between minority and majority group members when members share these four conditions. Number one, equal status. Number two, common goals. Number three, cooperative work. Number four, institutional support. Okay, so this is in 1954. Now, not all of those elements are present, at least that we can determine, in Daryl Davis's story, nor are they necessarily in Dia Khan's story. But I will say this: if you're listening to somebody, like I'm Native American descent, let's say I'm talking to somebody and they're like, I hate you featherheads. Okay, fine. That's cool. Whatever. Right? Let's sit down and have a cigar, a beer, a cup of coffee, whatever. Tell me why you hate the featherheads. Okay. Well, guess what? When I listen to you, that puts you on equal status with me. That's a good thing. If I'm listening to you and you're listening to me, at least one common goal is that we're listening to each other, right? We're also cooperative. If we're listening to each other, that's a cooperative effort. Now, there might not be any institutional support. Depends on that. Like if you're in a job, it might be institutional support, right? The company might say, okay, we're going to have you guys sit down and work this out. Now, here's the cool part. He makes an interesting point about prejudice when exploring how best to define it, specifically distinguishing between prejudice from prejudgment. Judging is based on limited information, which is what we all do. But here's what he says. I'm going to put this up on the screen for you. Gordon Allport. He says, quote, not every overblown generalization is a prejudice. Some are simply misconceptions. Prejudgments become prejudices only if they are not reversible when exposed to new knowledge. This is important. A lot of people, I think, they brand and they say that's racism, that's prejudice, and a lot of times it's just an overgeneralization. It's a generalization that's gone too far. And to that, I would say sometimes people are just ignorant. Yeah, it comes across as racist and prejudice, but sometimes what's really going on there is simply ignorance. Now, it might manifest and turn into a prejudice, right? People are complex. That's true. But I think we need to remember, you know what? Maybe this person is just ignorant, right? Like Ken Parker had no idea how nice Muslims could be until one called up to check on his girlfriend in the hospital. Being the only person who called up. My take is that his white supremacist buddies didn't even call up themselves, but the brown person did. Right. And Dia Khan pointed out, not everybody was able to, Ken Parker it was difficult for him to be hateful in person because he probably was operating more on ignorance than he was on actual hate. And this is the point. This is why she made that statement where she goes, it says something about me when I have these judgments and these prejudices about this guy. You might assume, hey, this person's just full of hate. Maybe they are. Maybe they're full of ignorance. Maybe they had something that happened to them that they had trouble getting over. Let's go. I'm not going to show any videos of it, but think of the movie American History X. How did the main character become a white supremacist? Well, once upon a time, he wasn't. And his dad was a firefighter, went into a bad neighborhood and was trying to save somebody and ended up getting killed by a black person. That would really, really do a number on any child. Your dad's a firefighter and they get killed doing their job, saving somebody, killed by somebody, not killed just in the line of duty, but killed by somebody. Yeah, that would take you down a very terrible path. Might it bring you to a place of hate? Sure could. And could that be resolved? Sure could. Because in that same movie, what happened? He was befriended by a guy, a black guy. And that friendship taught him, hey, you know what? Turns out he's one of the good ones. That's one of the good ones. And one of the good ones just kept growing until all of a sudden he was like, now my worldview isn't there are black people and there are some who are some of the good ones. It's there are black people and there are some who are the bad ones. That's what we need to get people to. And we get them there by befriending them. So Gordon Allport, he came up with this theory, contact hypothesis. Now, from the literature that I've read and his book, it would seem that the book is largely still relevant. Many studies since have confirmed his theory in various group settings. In a 2006 paper, social psychologists Linda Trop and Thomas Pettigrew conducted a meta-analysis of 515 such studies. 500. And they concluded that the consistency of contact does reduce prejudice. And that analysis also produced 3 caveats. Number 1, the results did not reflect self-selection. That is, contact was beneficial regardless whether it was sought after or not. So in the case of Daryl Davis, he sought it out. But in the case of his friend, his to-be friend, what was his friend's name? Roger Kelly, he did not seek it out. He was not looking to find common ground with the black people, with a black person or black people, right? But Daryl Davis was. So the self-selection there was only is very unidirectional, very one way. Number 2, the next caveat, that contact also reduces prejudice with other minority groups. So if you're a KKK member and then you start warming up to a Muslim, well, that's going to go toward later warming up to a Jew or to a homosexual or to a black person, right? Maybe not all in the same order, maybe over time, but it's going to lay the foundation, and that same foundation is going to go toward other groups. Third caveat, while the 4 conditions produced the best results, prejudice was reduced even when some of the conditions were unmet. That is how powerful the idea of connecting with somebody is. That even the research that says we need these 4 things to be in place, that you can turn around and say, well, even if not all 4 of them have been met, you still get a benefit. You still get a benefit from this. How amazing is that? The truth of the matter is, if you want to reduce prejudice, the best thing you can do is connect people, right? That's the absolute best. And however that happens, it varies. In some cases, it will be tenuous. Daryl Davis went and met with Roger Kelly. Roger Kelly didn't even know he was meeting with the black man, showed up at a hotel to have a conversation. Bam, now he's sitting there with the black guy who he doesn't like, and then ends up becoming friends with him, leaves the Klan. They like if you hear the story, Roger Kelly starts going to Daryl Davis's music events where he's playing. And then I think at one point, Daryl Davis was invited to Roger Kelly's daughter's recital. Like, I mean, you think about this. Like, they went from hating each other to, hey, why don't you come and check out my daughter's recital? Like, that's what happens. That's the power. And let me ask you, I can never say the word, ostracizing people. Have you heard of any stories that produce this kind of effect from? Has anybody been like, man, I had nobody except for all my white friends, but then and that's when I realized that black people were good. Like, nobody says that. I mean, maybe, okay? We want to be careful with absolutes. But the truth is, you can't think of any popular story where that's happened. More than likely. You can't think of one because there are so few that they don't pop up on our radar. It might happen, but there's so few that pop. And like, this isn't the only case. I told you guys a story of me and a kid getting a fight at school, and the school was like, look, you guys have to work together on a project now. And if you don't do this project, you could fail this grade. Well, what did we ended up doing? We ended up becoming like best friends. Best friends. Okay? That is the power of contact. We need contact with other people, more of it. So, to Dave Portnoy's effort to try to send these kids to Auschwitz, I think that was a good thing. Let's try to not ruin people's lives if we don't have to, especially when we have evidence, very good evidence, evidence in the category of anecdote, evidence in the category of data. We have them both that say the best way to handle this is just to talk to people. And that is what I have to say about this, right? That will go further than anything we can do. There is, and go ahead. I'll wait. You show me what works better, what creates a better society. Go ahead. I'll wait. I got another 500 episodes to do because it's going to take you that long to come up with the first sentence in your argument because it doesn't work. Like other ideas don't, I mean, they might work to a degree, but they don't work better. Not by far. All right, let's get to some comments. And then let's get over to the end of the, so let me see here. I got to hurry up. I got a hard stop here. Let's see here. It was a great episode yesterday. It was. Go check that out with people from You Are the Power. Keith Garrett says, I'm not a racist. I only hate this group and that one. And oh yeah, these people. Oh, it hurts to laugh. If you hate everybody, you can't be a racist. Anyway, I'm sure he's kidding, people. Don't take it too serious. And I know him. He's a good guy. He's not a racist at all. So, all right, let's close this out, and then let's get over to the after party for a few minutes, and then I've got a jet. So, have fun with your day. Hope you learned something. But for now, I've got to get up out of here. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.